Let's watch a CNN panel discuss the masculinity issues of the Democratic Party as, of course, Republicans are the bastion of masculinity. All men should want to be just like Donald Trump and Elon Musk because divorced and round is the new black.
Joe Rogan has an audience mostly of young men. There was this whole big drama about whether Kamala Harris was going to give an interview to him, wound up not doing it. I think is probably a mistake, although it probably didn't affect the outcome of the election. But, I mean, I think, you know, that guy said was pretty dumb, but it is not. It is not true. It is true that Democrats have a problem, especially with young men. I mean, that is a real fact.
So then, to me, that in a way it validates what Clay Travis is talking about, because if you're trying to get young men, you're not going to get them on all policy points and all. No, Joe Rogan knows karate, and sometimes he talk about drugs. That's good enough for me. Pete Hegseth was in Germany this week doing squats with like 220 on the bar outside for no reason.
I do think the Democratic Party has a problem with men, but I don't think it's because of a lack of masculinity. I think it's because the media environment is so driven towards toxic forms of masculinity that most men don't know what it is, or they just don't resonate with what actual masculinity would represent. I mean, if it's just hitting the gym, like this guy said about Pete Hegseth doing squats, I go to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week, but the number one insult I get on here is that I'm feminine or gay or all of that. I don't think someone like Joe Rogan is masculine. I think Joe Rogan is dumb, but I do understand that a lot of younger men do think that he embodies masculinity, and it's because they're conditioned to think that men have to be like stoic with their emotions and a badass physically and also unwilling to be challenged. Rather, you assert that you're right. That's dominance. And a lot more right-wing channels are also pushing these concepts of like political incorrectness as masculinity as well. So something as simple as having like general acceptance of all or an unwillingness to punch down is seen as feminine or an attack on masculinity now, when I would consider the ability to defend what's right, even when it's unpopular, to be masculine.
When Trump had the assassination attempt in Butler, that image of him raising his fist and saying, fight, 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 was like a shot of testosterone in the arms of a lot of men. Mark Zuckerberg was like, oh my God, he's so cool. And now look at where we are politically with some of these very people really turning politically toward Trump.
Those numbers that you just read, it's been happening for 10 years. This has been happening slowly but surely over time. I think that pollster in that clip earlier had said 2 out of 6 moderate men voted for Trump. Sorry, it was the majority of moderate men voted for Trump. Even over 20% of liberal men voted for Trump. There has been what is seen as I don't want to say a war on masculinity, but there has been this trend in the Democratic Party, or it's at least felt that the left is becoming more and more hostile to the things that are typically men.
This is another way that it can be shown how conservatives control media, even outside of the landscape of politics. Media slants right, because I will agree that that Trump image, it was metal, right? Like super cool photo, undoubtedly, but our media environment is such that this is seen as masculine, which I mean, sure, maybe you could make the argument that it is, but then say like Pete Buttigieg going on Fox News, controversial grounds, and fact-checking them and shutting them down at every avenue is seen as like feminine or just annoying or not masculine, when I would argue that that's just as masculine or even more so. He's straight on taking on confrontation. The idea of caring about facts, about data, it's just not seen as masculine, which I mean, I guess it never really has. I was, I guess, kind of nerdy in school because I was a number guy. I guess being, you know, numbers and nerd, kind of the stereotype, but this puts the party that has an obligation to fact and factual reality and data at an inherent disadvantage when it's seen as annoying to be the guy on the presidential stage that's citing the data and the numbers, but it's seen as manly to be the one who's just like, nah, get dunked on, loser.
I can see the appeal of Donald Trump being a very strong masculine man, and I can see him winning over men, because I do agree the Democratic Party, for all intent and purpose, felt like a place for the others, and they tried to take on every issue that the Republicans didn't want. If you want to talk about trans, come here. If you want to talk about LGBTQIA, come here. If you want to talk about men and women, you know, in sports, come here. There were all of these things that I felt men wanted to say felt emasculating. It felt like, I'm not with that. I don't believe in that. And I'm going to go over here because they're saying what I'm thinking.
And the abortion issue played a role in that. I mean, I think they
and
did a political calculation.
And I think no one cared
that
about
was gonna be the
abortion.
big-
I do kind of agree with what she said at the end, and I'll get to that. But something in thinking about this, I've realized through her saying this that she could see the appeal in Trump as a strong man for other people, because I absolutely couldn't see that. And he's way too dumb, way too stupid for me to see him like a strong, masculine man. And it made me realize that this idea of masculinity is just another attack on intellectualism. This masculinity thing that MAGA is trying to sell is just them positioning where it's not manly to be an intellect. Like, real men don't care about that stuff. Like, they don't value degrees or studies or data. They go off intuition and just their feeling, you know? It's kind of how Republicans used to sell it as we're the everyman and Democrats are the party as the elite, when really it's just Democrats are the party of intellectuals, because they're not the same thing. And if you look at who MAGA tried to push as elites, it gave the game away. It would be like university professors and such, but those are just intellectuals. For instance, Elon Musk is an elite, absolutely not an intellectual. Even more so is the case with Trump. These people are just trying to wage a war on intellectualism in any way they can to appeal to the most amount of people they can, as an effort to keep the population dumb, thus easier to control. So I'm here to tell you, men, it's okay to be smart. You can read that book. You're still a king.